What's up, Zach here, and these are my top 5 favorite basketball shoes for tennis. Let's get into it. Now, obviously, the main top 5 list here encompasses hardcourt tennis. However, there are people that do play on rubberized courts, and I will give some recommendations for that as well, kind of in the meat of this video. Now, coming in number 5 is actually the same shoe that was number 5 in the top 5 pickleball list, and that is the Adidas Dawn Issue 5. Now, of course, there is an Adidas Dawn Issue 6 out there, but the biggest difference is, number 1, the outsole tread. The outsole tread on the Dawn Issue 5, honestly, much better for outdoor tennis courts, and honestly, I feel like it does just as well on an outdoor hard court that it does, on an indoor hardwood court. And if you look at it, it looks exactly like a barricade. And so I think this is kind of like the silhouette that the barricades may have gone down, and then Adidas basketball, kind of came in. It also has light strike foam, which honestly isn't the most responsive thing on earth, but does have a pretty thick foam strobel and a super chunky shank. So honestly, these shoes are very inexpensive right now, especially because the 6s are out. So you can get these for around $70 in some instances. I'll leave whatever links I have in the description below. But you can get a really affordable shoe and get a flagship level type playability in these. And like we've seen with a lot of the barricades recently, they're not the most plush shoes out there. And honestly, the Dawn Issue 5 is much more plush than the Adidas Barricade is. So even though it's not the most plush basketball shoe out there on Adidas's lineup, it's more plush than the Barricade. Now, coming in at number 4 is a shoe that, if not for the outsole tread, this would probably be the number 1 shoe on this list, and that is the New Balance Kawhi 4. Now, the Kawhi 4's got just a ridiculous shank in this thing. I mean, it is so supportive. Plus, in terms of lateral support, even though it doesn't look like it has a huge flange, just the way your foot sits in the shoe, it really rides. You feel like you're riding low in it, but obviously with this foam stack in it, you are not. Now, the outsole tread on these things is just a very gentle radial pattern. That's the thing that's going to start to get ripped up on these. Now, the durometer on these, the outsole tread is actually, it's pretty tough rubber. It's just that it's so thin. So if you're someone that doesn't slide a lot, doesn't produce a lot of heat and friction, really kind of comes to some sputter steps, actually you can kind of decrease the heat in your shoes, then honestly, this is probably a great pickup. It's just the people that, do produce a lot of friction on the courts. That's what's going to wear down. The rest of the shoe, however, for tennis, absolutely fantastic. And coming in at number 3 is a shoe that usually seems to find its way on these lists, and it is the Way of Wade All City 12. Now, this has a pretty aggressive kind of contained herringbone within a more radial pattern. This rubber is pretty tough on the outside of it. It's obviously meant for indoor and outdoor basketball, but it can withstand the rigors of tennis. But the thing is, it's what's on the inside of the shoe that counts. It's this entire bed of thermoplastic foam plus a double shank in this thing. I mean, if you were trying to get up to high speeds in this shoe, but want to have a shoe with enough containment to be able to really, pivot and move the other direction, this thing with the super wide flange and this really wide lateral container on it just has so much stability as well as so much speed. So if you're looking for something that can really rival a tennis shoe in terms of that containment, right, that protection as well as the speed, All City 12 is your pickup. And coming in at number 2 is a shoe that's quickly becoming one of my personal favorites, and that is the 361 Degrees Big 3 5.0 Quick Pro. It's such a long name. But the thing about this shoe is I talked about this in the pickleball video because this one showed up there too. Number 1, it's actually got a really decent drag guard, even rivaling a lot of tennis shoes. But number 2, the rubber consistency on both indoor and outdoor courts is just out of this world. If you want to slide on these shoes on an outdoor court, you can. If you want to pivot and go on these on an outdoor court, you can as well. And I found that, yes, they have enough lateral containment in them, but they're such a buttery feeling shoe on the inside, but such a protective feeling shoe as well on the inside, that you can pound these on an outdoor court for hours and hours. Your feet still feel pretty fresh, but you still feel like you have a lot of degrees of freedom in them. It almost feels like it has the playability of something like the Barricade, but the plushness of something like the Wave and Force Tour. So really, in terms of a real feel shoe, but also a lot of protection, number 1, rubber, as well as, midsole foam under your foot, the Big 3 5.0 Quick Pro is just an absolute beast. Before I get to the number 1 shoe, I do want to make mention of my 3 favorite indoor basketball shoes for indoor rubberized tennis courts. Number 1, it would be really in no particular order, but it would be the Nike LeBron 21s. These have the silhouette of a pretty aggressive tennis shoe, except the rubber profile of them really just, suits more indoor courts better. But in terms of rubberized courts, really fantastic. Number 2, if you can get them for a decent price, would be the Kobe 4 Protro. Same thing. It's got the really nice aggressive lateral clip flange like a tennis shoe would have, but it also has, you know, the rubber on it. Yeah, it's just going to wear down on an outdoor court, but on a rubberized court, these things have enough forgiveness to them. You can really get for those like low skidding balls in rubberized courts. Rubberized courts are a lot of times like a grass court sometimes is how the ball skids. We used to practice on rubberized courts in the wintertime for our tennis team, and I can always remember that ball just skidding. And these ones allow you to get really kind of low to the ground, but also pop up pretty easily. And the last one, last but not least, would be the Nike Sabrina 2. These ones, once again, I mean, honestly, this rubber pattern, if it were harder, would probably be okay for outdoor courts. If you can find these in XDR rubber, then I think that'd be fine for an outdoor tennis court. It's got to watch dragging and sliding on them. But once again, for an indoor rubberized court, the clip flange on these, as well as how low you can get to the ball, and just how these shoes interact, especially with the foam setup on a rubberized court, really kind of complements the setup of all 3 of these shoes. So if you're looking for indoor rubberized, if you can get these 3, especially because, you know, the LeBron 21s, a lot of them now are going on sale. The Sabrina 2s will be on sale at some point. The Kobe 4 Protros will never be on sale, but if you want to get them, it's a good excuse to buy them. And coming in at number 1, if this shoe wasn't a tennis silhouette, I don't know what is, and that is the New Balance two-way V4. These things, number 1, have this super chunky herringbone on the lateral side. It does have more of a hexagonal pattern, though, on the medial side, so this is where they could get a little bit beat up. The rubber hardness, the durometer is pretty decent on these. I'd say if you're a slider, they'll probably wear down a little bit more versus if you're not. The thing about these is just the overall forefoot profile of them, the flange on them, how they feel on outdoor courts. These things play like the best tennis shoes on the market. I mean, I've really wanted to put these in my top 5 tennis shoes for a little while now, just because every time I've played tennis in them, I've thought to myself, this is one of the best tennis shoes on the market. Just the way they play, the feelings of side-to-side support, the get up and go of them, just the rugged playability in these things, just how crazy protective they feel, but also crazy quick. You know, they have the best aspects of a super containing protective shoe, but also a super fast kind of get up and go shoe. So if you're looking for a shoe that can really rival most tennis shoes in terms of that really rugged, aggressive play, and can really handle no matter what kind of game you're playing, from a really big serve and volleyer all the way to someone that's playing a very kind of finesse all-court game, the 2AV4s really have you covered no matter what you want to do. All right, that's it. If you want to check out any of these shoes for yourself, I'll leave links in the description below. And if you want to check out a little bit of a deeper dive into any of these shoes that I did here, I will leave a special playlist linked up above, and make sure you subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the sneakerverse.